let me give you the facts about Kristi Noem, and you can judge this for yourself. The London Guardian, which is a left-wing publication, it got an early copy of Kristi Noem, and her book is coming out now. She's got a book coming out. She's vying to be vice presidential timber for Donald Trump, and she wants to give an anecdote that she's willing to do the difficult, messy, and ugly things if they need to be done. And so she recounts killing Cricket. I'm just going to read this to you. This is a 20-year-old story. Cricket was a Wirehaired Pointer about 14 months old, the South Dakota governor writes in a new book, adding that the dog, a female, had an aggressive personality and needed to be trained to be used for hunting pheasant. Noem's book, No Going Back, The Truth of What's Wrong with Politics and How We Move America Forward, will be published next month. Like other aspirants to be Trump's vice president who's ventured into print, Noem offers readers a mixture of autobiography, policy prescriptions, and political invective aimed at Democrats and other enemies. She includes her story about the ill-fated Cricket to illustrate her willingness to do anything, quote, difficult, messy, and ugly, if it needs to be done. Noem wrote that she took Cricket on a pheasant hunt with older dogs. The dog was young, and she hoped to calm it down and begin to teach her how to behave. But Cricket ruined the hunt, going out of her mind with excitement, chasing all those birds, having the time of her life. Cricket was on an electronic collar to attempt to bring her under control, but it didn't work. On the way home from the hunt, Noem stopped to talk to a local family, and Cricket escaped the truck and attacked the chickens and grabbed a chicken, crunching it to death with one bite, then dropped it to attack another. Noem says Cricket behaved like a trained assassin. When Noem finally grabbed Cricket, the dog whipped around to bite her. Then, as the chicken's owner wept, Noem repeatedly apologized and wrote the family a check, quote, for the price they asked and helped them dispose of the carcasses littering the scene of the crime. Cricket, the whole time, was the picture of pure joy. I hated that dog, Noem writes, adding Cricket had proven herself untrainable, dangerous to anyone who came in contact with her, and less than worthless as a hunting dog. At that moment, I realized I had to put her down. She got her gun, led Cricket to a gravel pit, and shot the dog. It was not a pleasant job, but it had to be done, and after it was over, I realized another unpleasant job needed to be done. She owned the female goat that was nasty and mean because it had not been castrated, and the goat smelled disgusting, musky, rancid, and loved to chase Noem's children. Noem decided she needed to kill the goat, just like Cricket. So she dragged the goat to a gravel pit. The goat jumped as Noem shot the goat and survived the wound, so she went back to the truck, retrieved another shell, then hurried back to the gravel pit and put him down with a shotgun. Noem realized a construction crew was watching her kill both animals. The workers swiftly got back to work, and then a school bus arrived to drop off Noem's children. Kennedy looked around confused, wrote of her daughter, "Where's Cricket? We love animals, but tough decisions like this happen all the time on a farm. Sadly, we just had to put down 3 horses a few weeks ago that had been in the family for 25 years. I guess if I were a better politician, I wouldn't tell the story here." You dang right. Good Lord. Okay. Let's begin with this. If Judas had an R next to his name, some of you would defend Judas, because without Judas's betrayal of Christ, he wouldn't have wound up on the cross. Therefore, Judas is the hero of the story. And my goodness, we just don't understand farm life. You city slickers just don't understand that sometimes this is just what you have to do on a farm. This is farm life. You got to make tough decisions. And also, Kristi Noem, she's a Republican. Rah, rah, we should stand by her and defend her. How dare you read something from the left-wing London Guardian? That's an excerpt from her book. You just don't know anything, and you'll just attack anybody you don't like, Erickson. Oh, good Lord, anybody can justify anything. Candace Owens is out there justifying Hitler. All right, let's recognize farm life. If you have an animal that's killing other animals, you have to kill the animal that's killing the other animals. But let's also go with the facts of the story here. Cricket was a young dog, and Kristi Noem got mad at the dog. Yes, the young, happy dog killed some chickens. That's bad, and Kristi Noem had to pay for them. But also, Kristi Noem could have hired a trainer. Kristi Noem could have done lots of things to calm the dog down. Kristi Noem could have done a lot of stuff, but her immediate reaction after taking this dog on a hunt with older dogs and the young dog ruining the hunt because she was so excited and then killing those chickens because she got out of Kristi Noem's truck because undoubtedly she left the window down and knew the dog was a nuisance and didn't care, and the dog got out and killed the chickens. Kristi Noem, instead of taking it upon herself to accept responsibility, decided the dog needed to die. So what does she do? This is the remarkable part of the story. Kristi Noem takes the dog to a gravel pit, shoots and kills the dog with a shotgun, and then realizes, you know what? While I'm down here today killing animals, let me go get my goat. The goat that's been around for quite a while that also needs killing, and then she's a bad enough shot with a shotgun. For those of you who are real city slickers and did not grow up in the country like I did, yes, Dubai and also rural Louisiana, a shotgun has a spray. Shotgun is not a single bullet. Kristi Noem with a shotgun could not kill the goat. She's a really bad shot, and she didn't. She shot a goat with a shotgun. The goat jumped out of the way of the blast at the last second, so she didn't just take multiple shells with her. She went and got another shell to then finish off the goat after having left the dog there, and then there are workers who see everything. She's a psychopath. I'm not saying this because she's a woman, because I also know how this works. Somebody, you wouldn't be seeing this as you. No. I've called plenty of male politician psychopaths. Here's the actual thing about Kristi Noem. Forget this ridiculous story. Forget your need to defend farm life. Forget your need to justify her shotgunning a dog and a goat. Forget all of you, because I know how this works. I've already seen it on social media. You just don't get farm life. You're a city slicker. No, I get farm life. I also get psychopaths like her in office trying to justify this stuff. Let's put this in perspective. Kristi Noem was a squishy, moderate yes man to the establishment in Congress. She did whatever the leadership wanted her to do. She did everything that she wanted leadership to do. She said yes to everything. She fought with conservatives for the establishment. She becomes governor of South Dakota. When COVID happens, the legislature in South Dakota opposed lockdowns, and Kristi Noem supported the lockdowns and kept vetoing legislative efforts to end lockdowns. Kristi Noem supported the vaccine mandate, and Kristi Noem also supported boys and girls sports because a leading medical provider for transgenderism happens to be based in South Dakota. They're a donor to her campaign, and she has supported the transgender agenda until it became culturally unacceptable on the right. And then, having had the legislature in South Dakota override her efforts to support transgenderism by vetoing their legislation restricting it, suddenly Kristi Noem decides she is against transgenderism, despite what her donors have done. Only after the winds shift. She's a psychopathic opportunist who's in a pit gunning down dogs and goats. And the picture of this is she's gunning down the dog, and then she's got to go get the goat and bring the goat down to the dead body of the dog and kill the dog, and the kids like the dog. She didn't think about giving the dog away. She didn't think about sending the dog for training. She didn't think about finding someone else to help the dog. She couldn't do it. It was a young dog with lots of energy, and she gunned it down. Now, for all of you who are trying to make excuses about farm life, for all of you trying to defend Kristi Noem because she's got an R next to her name, or you think you like her because she's pretty, forget the Corey Lewandowski affair, all of those other issues with Kristi Noem, let's just take the raw politics of this. Donald Trump's problems are with suburban women, and you're going to put a woman on the ticket with him who talks about gunning down dogs. Now, the funniest bit of analysis from this, I think, came from Casey Hunt on CNN. Listen to this.
any
Is
sense.
she trying to like, I mean, so Donald Trump, famously hates dogs. He he'll use the phrase like so-and-so should be shot like a dog. Like, is she trying to like appeal directly to him with this aggressive language?
I don't think so. I don't think, I mean, look, I can't get inside her head, but you're right. Like, I mean, this wasn't a book. This went by multiple editors, and this was written months ago.
Yes. Is she trying to suck up to Donald Trump, who hates dogs? Is she trying to suck up to Donald Trump by talking about how she's willing to kill dogs? By the way, she's defended herself, saying, I can't believe people are upset about a 20-year-old story about Cricket. The dog was on a working ranch. The dog was on a working farm. The dog wouldn't work because the dog was young and ill-trained and untrainable by her. The fact that Kristi Noem in 2024 doesn't have the sense to understand why it may creep people out a little bit, that she's bragging about killing a dog and a goat, and I just still, the visible scene of this in my head, she takes her shotgun loaded with birdshot, she takes the dog to a gravel pit, blows out the dog's brains, and then thinks, you know what? I got an old goat on the farm. I think I need to kill him too. Let me go get him. As opposed to, hey, maybe we shouldn't have cashed him. Now, I got an email here. I told y'all, everybody will justify everything here. I grew up on a small farm. When a dog starts killing chickens, or if they start eating, stealing eggs out of the nest, they most often can't stop, and training won't help. Using a shotgun was stupid. Won't defend that. We would use a 22. Okay. Again, I understand that some of you just have to defend farm life and your culture, and oh my God, your culture is under attack because poor old Kristi Noem wrote about an incident in a book 20 years ago. Forget farm culture, people. Don't be stupid. You're missing the point. One, it's Kristi Noem deciding to tell this story in 2024 about something that happened 20 years ago, thinking that, oh, no one's going to get upset about this. And two, she didn't just take a dog to the pit and shoot the dog with the shotgun. She then went and got a goat and brought the goat to the pit and shot the goat as well. Good Lord. She's a psychopath. Forget the affair with Corey Lewandowski. Forget what she did in Congress. And I realize there are a bunch of you who can't because it's farm culture. And by God, I got to defend farm culture. And this is normal on the farm. And so I got to defend the farm. And so I'm going to defend Kristi Noem, except I'm not going to defend Kristi Noem. You don't have to send me an email. You don't have to call. You can think this woman's insane to put this in a book in 2024 about something that happened 20 years ago and force me to feel like I've got to defend my culture because people are too ignorant to know, when actually a lot of us do know. But the point of the anecdote is that Kristi Noem couldn't train the dog. It was a young dog. Instead of finding someone to try to train it, or instead of killing the dog and not telling anyone, she felt like she needed to kill the dog and 20 years later write a book about it and tell you it's an example of her willing to do the tough things that need to be done. Or it's the over-ambitious psychopath governor of South Dakota thinking it's going to help her get a vice presidential bid when it wound up just disqualifying her. You don't have to send me emails and try to defend farm culture. You can just recognize she's nuts.